Why
So
not?
honored to be asked by Mark Molinaro, who I think is an amazing candidate and is the answer to the challenges we face in New York. And I have been involved politically about 10 years and in elected office for 6 years. And I have long felt that there are definitely solutions to the problems that are ailing New York, which I describe as it's a really expensive place to live, work, and do business. And I think there's solutions, and that's what keeps getting me out there, kind of fighting for New York and hoping to get to office and get to Albany. So I would say affordability is really the number one issue. The taxes are so high, they're driving people out of the state, causing businesses to leave the state, and opportunity, meaning having a better business climate so our businesses can grow, so that our young people can have jobs, people can have jobs, which kind of allows everything else to happen that we want to happen, and certainly helping those in need is incredibly important. And then really education and opportunities. I hear often when I travel the state that people are needing skilled workers and they're just not finding them. So workforce development and creating curriculum both in our high schools and in our colleges and community colleges that match up with the needs of the 21st century jobs.
I think specifically with Livingston County, I think one of the things that we hear a lot about when it comes to the county and state is unfunded mandates. Where do those fit on your agenda, and what do you see as a means for solving those?
I completely agree on the unfunded mandates, and my personal feeling is if Albany wants our local communities and counties to do something, that they should be paying for it. I was a local elected official, city council for 6 years, the last 2 years of that deputy mayor. So I know full well about unfunded mandates and having to balance a budget. So that, and often it's the timing of those mandates that's also a problem. We make our local communities, our schools, our counties do things, and we make them do them right away. So even the timing, because not everything we ask to do is maybe a bad thing, but I just think they're, in general, and I didn't get into this earlier, but when I'm talking about opportunity, both in our communities and also within our local municipalities, we have far too many regulations that it's just really impossible to keep up with, and it makes things paper intensive, and I think it wastes a lot of good productive time, both on a municipal level but also with businesses. So really looking at all of those, and I just, the unfunded mandates really have to either stop or they have to be paid for by Albany. And there was this Medicaid is one of the biggest contributors to our really high property taxes. And but we have talked about moving Medicaid from the county level back up to the state level. We are the only state in the union that does it that way. Everybody else pays it all at the state level. And I know when the state now covers some of the excess overages, they put a cap on the Medicaid costs for the counties. And once they did that, the growth of the cost started to go down. So and that proves what I've always said, which is that if the state had to cover the whole cost of Medicaid, they would really look more at making it more efficient. We still want amazing care, but some of the Medicaid care that is happening has not been as good as it should be. And I think we need to look at more options for getting people the care they need in the places that they need it. And we've been very focused on the very large hospital systems, and sometimes doing things at local clinics or things more locally has been better. So I think that if the Medicaid is all at the state level, we will have a much better handle on giving better care, but also making it more effective and more cost efficient.
And for years it seems like there's a difference between upstate and downstate. How do you bridge that divide, especially somebody who's more from the downstate area?
I am from a downstate, although I have always loved upstate. My mother is from not too far from here. My mother's from Rochester, so I traveled up here often as a child, and I have had an amazing time traveling the state and meeting all the people. We really have such an amazing state, And sadly, right now, I think we have a governor that doesn't appreciate that. He doesn't even think America's great, and New York is the greatest state in the country, which is another thing that just keeps me, keeps me wanting to make things better here and stay here. But there are very similar challenges across the state. Property taxes are high everywhere. Too many business regulations, stifling too much creativity and opportunity, and I think that happens across the state. But I do think Upstate has suffered far more than we have Downstate. And because Downstate, we have the economic engine of New York City, which helps in the suburbs all around New York City. And we need to focus more on Upstate, bottom line. And I have loved roaming around. Mark and I are very focused on the things that we can do for Upstate, but we need a governor, we need people in Albany that really appreciate what makes New York great, and one of the things that makes New York great is our agriculture and our dairy farms. There's many things that make New York great, but we need to be, support. I often complain about some of our particular elected officials in Washington and our senators who are demonizing the things that make New York great. And you would never hear that in Michigan, demonizing the car industry, or in Texas, demonizing the oil industry. We here have to embrace everything that makes New York great, and certainly one of those is our economy Upstate and our agriculture. Without our agriculture, New York would be a very different place. And I think that we need to, I know I have visited many small dairy farms, and they need help. There's large dairy farms, there's small dairy farms, and I know some of the small ones really need help in coming together and helping them more. Some of the co-ops have gone away, and we need to really help them with this environment. And I know that it's expensive to invest in some of the things the value-added things that can help them, whether they're making cheese or making yogurt or whatever. And I think that that's somewhere that the state can play a role in helping these people with some of the economic development things. We've had so many failed economic development projects upstate in New York that obviously the things with the casinos are not going well. The Buffalo Billions, the failed film hub in Syracuse, where we spent the $14 million film hub that's now worth $1. And I think we need to stop demonizing business owners and punishing entrepreneurs and picking winners and losers. We need to make it a level playing field. People need to know what the rules are. And we need to, as I said earlier, I really need to take a hatchet to some of those business regulations, most of which just don't make sense, and help people grow their businesses, and provide also, as I said earlier, it sounds like you here are doing some great things in workforce development, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. There has been too much of a focus on kids going to college is great, and education is incredibly important, but we have lost much of our vocational training, and certainly I think we need to work with the BOCES program and work in our high schools to provide once we have that economic opportunity to really provide the workers. Because I hear often from businesses that they're very happy with national policies, but they still feel like they're being constrained by many of the policies in the state. Just tell you very quickly, I have a degree in chemical engineering from Notre Dame. I then worked in finance and got an MBA. I have been home raising my kids for 25 years. I have 5 of them. And that might be my biggest accomplishment, is raising 5 children. But I have been involved in my community in many ways. I started a local drug and alcohol coalition, and I started working on that issue back in 2011, long before heroin and opiates were in the newspaper every day. I got federal funding for that coalition in 2015 from the Drug-Free Communities money coming out of the Office of National Drug Control Policy. I'm so proud of that. We have worked bringing our community together. In the intervening years between when I started it and when I got the federal funding, we had 6 children die of drug overdoses, and we're a 16,000 person community. And we have made major strides in getting our law enforcement involved with our schools. and establishing a lot of programs which have really made a difference in our community. And that's something, that issue, substance abuse and mental health are something that I think a lot about, work on, and I think there's solutions on the local level, but also on the state and federal level. I also was on my local city council for 6 years, as I said earlier, and the last 2 years as deputy mayor. When I first got on my local city council, we had a huge corruption scandal erupted within 2 weeks, and I was the leader in putting in a new conflict of interest policy and working with our finance department on more financial control so that would not happen again.
Right.
It is unconscionable, the amount of corruption that we have in New York State, and certainly in the governor's office, where we've now sending all kinds of people to jail after these corruption trials. I find it shameful. It's unacceptable, and we need ethics reform at the state. I worked on that on a local level. We need more accountability from our government, and I would say, to summarize all of it, we need a governor and a government that works for the people of New York, because right now that's not what we have, and Mark and I are really dedicated to listening to everybody in New York and having a government that serves the people and using your tax dollars, your hard-earned tax dollars, in a way that really serves the people, because right now we have high taxes, we have poor roads, crumbling bridges, many of the inner city schools are not good. And we're wasting money on economic development that's kind of going out the back door, and people work really, really hard for their money. We should be taking far less of it from them, and when we do get in tax dollars, we really should be using them in a way that benefits all the people.
Okay.